Chapter 339. Two one-month-old lambs stood by the roadside market in a small highland town, waiting for their buyers. Yes, they were Lashanda and Aodisai. They were little lambs that were as white as clouds in this life. The original owner's family wanted to go to school in the county town and hoped to sell these two lambs to pay for their school fees. Yolashanda looked around at the passers-by. None of them looked like their future poop picker. Sigh. Were they destined to be lamb skewers for the rest of their lives? Boo-hoo, I don't want to be lamb skewers. Yolashanda and Aodisai cried and complained. Their fates were no more than a few. They would either become roasted lambs at a young age or be sold to the night market to be stewed with scallions, ginger, and garlic. Aodisai thought to himself, how could it be so serious? Didn't Yolashanda say to run away after selling the lambs? If they ran away now, the old man would not be able to get the money. How pitiful. Don't cry. We won't become lamb skewers. Aodisai comforted them. He rubbed his head against Yolashanda, who smelled of milk. The fair and clean Yolashanda was very cute. Even the old man could not bear to sell them. Unfortunately, he really needed money. After all, raising them was also a huge expense. Sir, how much are these two lambs? A few young men who did not look like locals walked over. One of them asked for the price while the others stared at the lambs with their hands itching to touch them. Then, Yolashanda heard a few different voices. Oh my God, it's so cute. I want to buy it. Where did this group of people come from? They were dressed in fancy clothes. TSK. They did not look like decent people. Could it be that they opened a food stall? Yolashanda was shocked and quickly hid in the old man's arms. My lord, save me. The old man was probably thinking the same thing. These young people did not look like decent people at first glance. He subconsciously hugged his lamb tightly and asked in his broken Mandarin, why do you want to buy a lamb? The young men seemed to be stunned by the question, but at this time, they also saw the old man's vigilance, so they quickly explained, Sir, don't worry. We're not buying this lamb for barbecue. Wah, barbecue. Yolashanda shivered in the uncle's arms. He could not bear to hear these two words. Please. We saw that the lambs were cute and wanted to buy them to raise on the farm. All right, our farm is called Happy Farm. It's a sightseeing farm for tourists to visit. The fruits and vegetables on the farm can be picked, but the small animals can't be killed. They can only be looked at. The young man took out a business card and handed it to the old man. In Sir System's heart, anyone who had a name card was a decent person who could be trusted. Oh, so it's a farm. How much are you planning to spend to buy the sheep? The old man had poor eyesight, so he could not read the words on the business card. He could only hold it in his hand. We'll pay as much as you say. Those who could open farms in other places were all rich people, so they did not care about 100 yuan. The old man said a number, and the young men happily paid the money. Then, each of them carried a lamb over. Sir, don't worry. We'll take good care of them when we bring them back. As long as the farm is open for business, the two of them will live a good life. The old man smiled and nodded honestly. Then, he looked at the group of young men and carried the lambs into a car. The old man did not know the name of the car, but at first glance, he knew that it was a very expensive car. He had never seen such a car in the small town. That was true. Yolashanda and Aodisai got into a high-end SUV. The interior of the car was very spacious. Seeing this, the two of them whispered, the new poop picker is so rich. Are we still going to escape? Aodisai knew that Yolashanda would not be able to escape when he saw the money, so he decided, let's wait and see. According to his experience, these young men had sharp eyebrows and bright eyes. They had a sunny disposition and did not look like bad people. Yes. Yolashanda was in the arms of a man in a flowery shirt. He looked up at the man in the flowery shirt, and the man in the flowery shirt looked back at him. After looking at each other for 2 seconds, the man in the flowery shirt was melted. Damn, this lamb is so cute. The man in the flowery shirt grinned. Through his sunglasses, one could see that he was good-looking. He immediately rubbed Yolashanda's head and said, Meh, come call me. Be careful, he'll spit at you. One of the people in the front seat turned around and saw the man in the flowery shirt rubbing the lamb. The man in the flowery shirt immediately sneered and retorted, spitting his F asterisk asterisk K your mother. Have you even studied before? The other man in the white t-shirt who was carrying the lamb smiled and rubbed Ao Daisai's back silently. Although he looked cold, his hands were very gentle. The moment Ao Daisai was carried in his arms, he knew that this man was not simple. Suddenly carrying 2 lambs back. Do you know what to eat for such small lambs? The man in the front seat spoke again. Goat milk. The man in the white t-shirt said. Many people here raise sheep, and goat milk was a very common daily consumable. The 2 lambs were indeed carried back by them on a whim, but it was also true that they were opening a farm. Wasn't it natural to raise small animals on a farm? The young people's farm was located near a scenic spot. The location was very good, and there was usually a lot of traffic. Just buying this piece of land must have cost a lot, right? Yolashanda and the rest were brought into the farm. Perhaps the people were afraid that they would run around, so they were brought indoors. The man in the flowery shirt immediately said that he wanted to get some goat milk to feed the lambs, but he did not know where to find it. In the end, the man in the white t-shirt made a call to the local sheep farmer. He told the other party that he had 2 lambs that were 1 or 2 months old and wanted to raise them. The other party knew what to send over. Yolashanda and Ao Daisai stood in the spacious and luxurious interior. They had a feeling that these people were not here to start a business to make money, but to lose money. Anyway, with Yolashanda's business sense, he did not think that this farm would make money at all. Of course, this had nothing to do with them. As long as the farm did not close down, they would live a good life. His small goat hooves stepped on the clean floor. Alexander, who was very familiar with the place, strolled around and looked around like a curious baby. Ao Daisai was afraid that he would be in danger, so he followed him closely. When the people around saw this, they felt that it was quite fun. But weren't animals usually afraid of strangers? Why are these 2 lambs not afraid of people? Are they? The person who spoke pointed to his head and lowered his voice. Can't they do it here? Yolashanda instantly turned around and looked at him. He blinked his eyes, and his cute little face made people unable to bear to slander him. But they did not know that Yolashanda was complaining in his heart. That person was glared at by the others, and he seemed to feel that he should not have said that. The lambs were so cute and innocent, and they did not offend anyone. Why should he look down on the lamb's intelligence? Isn't it good to not be afraid of strangers? What's the point of being timid? The man in the white t-shirt said. Although the man in the white t-shirt had decided to buy the lambs, he seemed to like these 2 cute lambs. The man in the white t-shirt, who was looking up how to raise the lambs, laughed arrogantly. That's right. After a while, the person who delivered the milk came. He brought everything that was needed to raise the lambs. He looked at the 2 lambs and said, they are still young, more than a month old. The milk needs to be fed at least 3 to 4 times a day. After another month, you can add some porridge to feed them. The man in the white t-shirt hurriedly noted it down. Yes, yes. The uncle who sold goat milk kindly demonstrated how to feed the lambs with a bottle. Soon, the uncle exclaimed in surprise because the 2 lambs were very obedient. They drank milk at a moderate pace, unlike his lambs. Not only did they spill milk everywhere, but they also occasionally choked on their own milk. These 2 lambs are very obedient. It should be easy to raise them. The uncle was worried at first. A group of young people who looked like they had never done any work before suddenly didn't think highly of raising such small lambs. What kind of environment should we prepare for them to live in? The man in the white t-shirt asked the uncle while feeding the lambs. Later, when the uncle spoke, he also listened very carefully. Everyone started to tease him. Are you serious? Are you really serious about being a farm owner? The man in the white t-shirt rolled his eyes at them and said in the same tone, If I'm not going to be a farm owner, why would I come here? The money had been spent, and the framework of the farm was almost complete. Regardless of whether they were serious or not, he was serious. After feeding the lambs, who is going to build the pen with me later? Him. Everyone looked at each other, and in the end, they all pointed at the man in the white t-shirt. After all, this guy wanted to buy the lambs. We are exhausted. We have other things to do. You two will be in charge of the pen. The man in the white t-shirt. Okay. The The man in the white t-shirt shrugged and didn't have any objections. How can we do that? Forget it. You know everything. I will be your assistant. I will do whatever you ask me to do. At this point, Yelishanda and Ao Daisai immediately understood that these two were probably the real poop pickers. The others were only in charge of handling the lambs and not raising the lambs. When they were going to build the pen, Yelishanda and Ao Daisai followed them. It seemed that no one restricted their movements. It could also be that there was no suitable place to imprison them yet. The climate in the highlands was very comfortable. It was neither cold nor hot in this season. If they wanted to feel warmer, they could go out and bask in the sun. If they wanted to feel cooler, they could hide under the eaves or under the shade of the trees. Yelishanda and Ao Daisai were only a month old. Their fur wasn't very thick, and they didn't feel hot walking under the sun. It was just that the wind was a little strong. The white clouds in the sky were as cute as cotton candy. The spacious farm under the blue sky had endless green grass. The two lambs walked on the grassy slope and saw the picturesque windmills in the distance, the huge trees hanging from the trees, the purple lavender fields, the crop fields, and there were also patches of sunflowers. This place is so beautiful. Yelishanda was stunned. For a moment, he felt that he was a sheep prince who had mistakenly entered a fairy tale world. Boo-hoo! It was obvious that this was a sightseeing farm that had been built with a lot of money. The main plant and the romantic architecture were not in place yet. There were only two lambs. The beautiful scenery attracted Ao Daisai's attention. He and Yelishanda climbed up the slope and imagined the time they would live here in the future. So the scenery in the cartoons is real. Ao Daisai gazed at the windmill with a deep gaze. He was very happy. So the world that Yelishanda had always liked and envisioned was real. The white t-shirt man and the flowery shirt man tidied up a wooden hut. They scattered soft and dry grass on the floor. Next, they had to make a wooden trough and a water trough. To prevent the lambs from knocking over the water trough and making the pen wet, they decided to make a running water trough in front of the wooden hut. It was like a small water wheel. The more they thought about it, the more expensive it would be. As they were busy, the flowery shirt man's eyelids suddenly twitched. He picked up the towel around his neck and wiped his face. Where are the two lambs? The white t-shirt man frowned and was about to throw away his tools to look for the lambs. Just as he took off his gloves, he saw the flowery shirt man put his fingers in his mouth and whistled loudly with all his might. What a waste of effort! The white t-shirt man mocked. What would such a small lamb know? It wasn't like they were trained. However, not long after they walked out, they saw two snow-white lambs running back quickly from the grassy slope in the distance. They were obviously little things that were only a month old, but they were running with the momentum of thousands of soldiers and horses. The white t-shirt man and the flowery shirt man were stunned and shocked. Yelishanda. The sound of eating is louder than the sky. Chapter 340. Is it time to eat? Is it? Yelishanda ran back from outside, afraid that they would miss the meal. After all, they had already digested the milk they had in the afternoon. Seeing the two of them, the man in the white t-shirt and the man in the flowery shirt were shocked. Damn, are all lambs like this? They came back when they heard the whistle. How is this low IQ? They are obviously smarter than many dogs. As expected of the sheep that I chose. They are quite smart. The man in the flowery shirt was the happiest. He gestured with his hands and legs, and then ran over to pet the sheep. Don't dawdle. Go back and get the sheep's milk for them. The man in the white t-shirt realized that his clothes were drenched in sweat. He took off his shirt as he walked, revealing his strong muscles. Yelishanda exclaimed in his heart, "This man is so flirtatious. He looks like a human with his clothes on, but when he takes off his clothes, his hormones are bursting." But he did not dare to look too much because there was a jealous boyfriend at home. Oh, as expected, his ear was being chewed again. "I hate humans," Ao Daisai said slowly. "Who doesn't hate humans when you say that?" Yelishanda quickly threw the image of the muscular man out of his mind and pretended to criticize him. Humans destroy the environment, pollute the earth, cause the extinction of animals, and make them homeless. I hate them too. Seeing that Ao Daisai's attitude had finally improved, he rubbed his chin and continued to say, "Next time, we must go to a place where there are no humans." The innocent Ao Daisai once again believed in Yulashanda's words. They followed the two humans into the house and drank a full meal of sheep's milk. The people who were working in the afternoon had already prepared dinner. The food was fragrant, and Yulashanda was craving for it. Unfortunately, he could only eat porridge after a month. While the people were eating, Ao Daisai stayed in the living room and watched TV. "Yulashanda, why is it a news broadcast? What's there to watch? What does what's happening in the world have to do with the sheep? Can someone please change the channel?" However, everyone in the house was watching the news broadcast with great interest. No one wanted to change the channel, except for Yulashanda. "Does it look good?" he asked the engrossed Ao Daisai. Ao Daisai was about to say that it was better than cartoons, but she changed her mind and said, "To pass the time." "That's right." Yulashanda thought so too. Yulashanda, who was always on the lookout, noticed that there was a bowl of fruits on the coffee table. It was a sweet jujube. When no one was looking, Yulashanda stretched out her mouth and took 2 sweet jujubes. She gave one to Ao Daisai and said, "Quick, eat it." Little lambs were born with baby teeth. The 2 lambs used their baby teeth to prick the dates, and the sweet taste spread in their mouths. They were so happy that it was as if they had taken advantage of the world. Who said that sheep could only drink milk? They could still eat sweet dates. Little did they know that the people who were eating had already noticed them watching the television and stealing the jujubes. These young people who had never raised animals were thinking, "Do all the little lambs like to watch television?" After dinner, half a bowl of sweet dates was about to be emptied. The man in the white t-shirt put down his bowl and chopsticks and personally sent the 2 lambs back to the pen to rest. Watching too much television was not good for the eyes. Yulashanda had no choice but to walk back to the pen unwillingly. At night, the temperature in the highlands would drop and the wind would blow outside. Fortunately, there was a lot of hay in the pen, and it was very comfortable to lie on it. He did not know if the sheep were afraid of the dark, but it should be. The man in the white t-shirt installed a small night light for them, and the dim light illuminated a corner of the pen. The water bucket was placed at the door, so the pen was not closed and people could enter and leave freely. When the man in the white t-shirt was done, he turned around and suddenly saw a sheep sleeping with its 4 legs facing the sky. He thought that he had seen wrongly and turned his head away, but the sheep was still facing the sky with its 4 legs facing the sky. What a strange little lamb. The next morning, the man in the white t-shirt was holding a big bottle of milk in his left and right hands. He yawned and came to feed the sheep, and, at the same time, he checked if the pen was dirty. Of course not. As a civilized sheep, they would go outside to use the toilet. After all, there were natural fertilizers, and it was a waste to waste them. As the pen was too clean, it was a little abnormal. The man in the white t-shirt quickly asked the man in the white t-shirt if a sheep was sick. The man in the white t-shirt said, maybe it was done outside. That was true. Today their task was to build a water wheel in front of the sheep pen. This project might take a while, and when the others came to take a look, most of them advised the man in the white t-shirt, "Why don't we find a professional to do it? It's just a matter of spending some money." The man in the white t-shirt refused. "If we spend money to hire people for everything, what's the point?" The others were not convinced. What did he mean by spending money to hire people for everything? This farm was plowed by them, okay? The flowers, grass, and crops were also planted by them. They had to do farm work in the morning, and at night, they had to work online. Was it easy for them? Up to you, up to you. You can do it yourselves. We will go chop firewood. A few days ago, the farm brought back a cart of firewood, and they needed to saw it into sections, then chop it into a few pieces and stack it under the roof. This firewood wall could be set aside for a year or 2, and it would be very comfortable to burn. It could be used for cooking, barbecuing, and heating. In winter, the amount of firewood used increased exponentially. Yulashanda and Ao Daisai were the most leisurely living creatures in the entire farm. They were free and could go wherever they wanted, as long as they did not step on the crops. The people did not restrict them. When they were working, they saw 2 snow-white lambs playing around, and they were in a good mood, as if this was the feeling of farm. A farm without small animals was a farm without souls. Someone said, "When will the chickens and ducklings that we ordered yesterday be delivered today?" It turned out that they did not go to the small town to buy lambs yesterday, but to look at the chickens and ducklings. The farmer promised to deliver them today. In the afternoon, the farmer arrived as scheduled and delivered 30 chickens and 30 ducklings to the farm. The number of small animals on the farm suddenly increased. Yolashanda started to mutter, "So many small trumpets. Where should I put them? Don't put them next to my house. I don't agree." 30 chickens and 30 ducklings were indeed small trumpets, and they chirped as soon as they landed. For the sake of everyone's peace, their chicken shed was built in a remote corner. The young man who suggested buying chickens and ducklings said, "The ducks cannot be without water, but there is no stream on the farm. Why don't we dig a personal pond for them? I'll take care of it." Yolashanda, who had joined in the fun, was envious. The ducklings actually had a swimming pool. "The empty space in front of our house can also be used as a pond, but we can't play with the water wheel." He was jealous. Aodisai said, "There will be frogs in the pond, and it will be very noisy at night." The water wheel was the sound of flowing water. In comparison, he felt that the water wheel was more suitable for the scenery next to the house. That seemed to be the case. Another person said, "Since we were digging a pond, why not dig a big one, so we can put the fish in it and increase the fun of fishing?" It was good to raise fish. Alisanda voted in favor of it. Time passed quickly, and the two lambs heard the call of their dad, the flowery shirt, and immediately turned back. The chickens and ducklings seemed to like them very much, and actually followed behind them. Although they were fluffy and cute, Yolashanda did not want this group of small loudspeakers to be guests at his house. They would poop everywhere, and if he was not careful, he would fall into their trap. Especially the liquid kind. Oh, I don't want to talk about it. It was very smelly. Therefore, he and Aodisai took a detour and cleverly got rid of the chickens and ducklings. Just like that, the whole farm was bustling with activity. One side was making the water wheel, the other side was digging the pond, and some were chopping firewood and building the firewood wall. Soon, Yolashanda and Aodisai had lived on the farm for a full week. The two dads thought that their conditions were stable and asked someone to come and give the two lambs an injection. Lambs that were 40 days old could be vaccinated for foot and mouth disease. When Yolashanda heard about the injection, he did not come out of the sheepfold in the morning. He was not feeling well today. Could he get the injection another day? The main thing was that the thick syringe was so scary. The needle was long and sharp, and it was not like the small dose of the cat's vaccine. This did not make sense. Yolashanda, be brave. Aodisai encouraged the little bear as he was vaccinated. He knew that the injection was to make the body healthier, so he was very cooperative. "Look, it's over quickly. I don't think it's painful." But what was the use of Aodisai thinking that it was not painful? Yolashanda still looked at the needle in fear, and the sheep trembled. "Really? I don't believe it." His boyfriend tried hard to persuade him to come out of the haystack. "It's true anyway. It's just one injection. It'll be over in a moment." Anyway, he had to get the injection. Yolashanda thought so too. How long could one injection last? Wouldn't he be able to relax after the injection? Although he felt that such a hygienic sheep like him would not fall sick, what if? After he was mentally prepared, the snow-white little lamb came out of the haystack, and with a head full of haystack, he was pricked with a needle. What he did not know was that in the next 50 days, they still had to get the sheep pox and chicken embryo vaccine. The 60 days, they still had to get the aluminum hydroxide vaccine for infectious pleural pneumonia. The 70 days, they still had to get the lyophilized vaccine for oral ulcers. And the 80 days, they still had to get the second anthrax vaccine. Yolashanda. Enough, let me die. It was said that lambs would be listless for a while after the vaccination, but the two on the farm were not like that. After the vaccination, they ate even more, and the 3 meals of milk a day were not enough for them. The flowery shirt, who did not follow the rules of rearing sheep, directly gave them porridge. When he was cooking the porridge, he was eager to give it a try. He asked the man in the white t-shirt, "Do you think they will grow faster if we add some minced meat?" The man in the white t-shirt, who was sorting the vegetables at the side, was stunned. "What? feeding minced meat porridge to the sheep. Cooking was such a big thing, so of course Yolashanda was beside them. When he heard that the flowery shirt wanted to add minced meat to their porridge, he wagged his tail and stomped his hooves on the floor. Add, don't add, it's everyone's choice. Two pairs of eyes looked at him at the same time, not knowing what he was excited about. The flowery shirt touched his chin. He wants to eat meat? The man in the white t-shirt rolled his eyes. Sheep don't eat meat, he only eats plants. Don't mess around. As he said that, he looked at the vegetables in the basket, grabbed a handful, and put it into the sheep's porridge. Add some vegetables, this should be okay. There were only vegetables and no meat. Yolashanda was very disappointed with them. Even when it was time to eat the porridge, he was still nagging. You can't do what you say. You're not a man. Lying to the little lamb, I will never believe them again. As Ao Daisai was sleeping and did not go to the kitchen, he did not know what happened. What happened? Did someone bully you? Yolashanda looked up pitifully and said, yes, they said they would add minced meat, but in the end, they only added vegetables. The author has something to say. Boo-hoo, I can't stand this grievance. Chapter 341. In fact, it was already good enough to have vegetable porridge. If they had met a reliable nanny, they wouldn't even get plain porridge. After being comforted by Ao Daisai, Yolashanda happily ate the vegetable porridge. After eating, they had nothing to do and went to Little Chicken and Little Duck's territory to watch the digging machine digging the pond. It had been digging for a while, and it seemed that it would be completed today. This group of people was rich and had really dug a pond that was twice as big. But the problem was, where would the water come from? Everyone thought about it, and finally chose to spend money to bring in fresh water from the mountain. This was another big project. The opening date was delayed because of the canal. Not long after, the water wheel in front of Yolashanda and Ao Daisai's house was completed. The nanny installed a modern water circulation machine for the water to circulate. It was beautiful, but Yolashanda felt unbalanced again. Why was Little Chicken and Little Ducks pond the fresh water from the mountain, but his and Ao Daisai's water wheel, the tap water? He was angry. Wasn't this too discriminatory? If one day the nanny forgot to change the water for a long time, wouldn't the water in the small pond be smelly? Because of this, Yolashanda didn't have eyes and nose for a few days, until the nanny raised a carp in the small pond. It was very pleasing to the eye. He finally felt comfortable reluctantly. After building the water wheel, it was time for greenery. The flat ground in front of the house was paved with expensive turf and planted with some flowers and plants. It was perfect. Since the sheep had been here for a long time, their nanny thought that there was no need to plant flowers that were too expensive and difficult to raise. It was best to plant flowers that could be thrown on the ground and would live. Yolashanda, give me a cactus and you'll be done for. How could that be? What cactus? That thing was prickly. If the sheep were hungry and ate it, it would be bad. The best flowers to live were the sunflowers. The double-petaled sunflower seedlings that bloomed all year round were planted around the water wheel. There were also some dripping places under the eaves. It was so fun. Yolashanda wanted to bring a watering can to help water the flowers. However, the grass had just been laid down not long ago, so he didn't dare to step on it. He could only walk on the brick path in front of the door and admire the beauty of his home. The flowery shirt clapped his hands and transplanted a few sunflowers into the sheep's pen. Now, the sheep pen had become very beautiful. The friend who set up the chicken shed came over to take a look, and his eyes were filled with amazement. Isn't this too beautiful? Isn't it just raising two sheep? Is there need to be like this? The flowery shirt man waved his finger. Our sheep are just ornamental sheep. How can they be compared to your chickens and ducks? Chickens and ducks were allowed to be eaten when they grew up. Otherwise, why would they continue to raise them? Sheep don't have to be slaughtered. They can always be raised. That was also true. The whole farm knew that the flowery shirt man's two sheep loved to be clean. Their personalities were really cute. They couldn't refute. How should they put it? They felt that their chicken shed was not presentable. They wanted to cry. Oh, raising chickens and ducks was too difficult. They would poop everywhere. Because chickens and ducks were too difficult to manage, someone suggested to buy a shepherd dog. This person was the one who mistook the sheep for a grass mud horse. He liked to raise dogs. After the vote was passed, he excitedly brought back 2 meteorite border herding dogs. The number of people living on the farm increased again. Currently, the most expensive thing to buy was the 2 border herding dogs. Well, if there was no limit to the number of people alive, the most expensive thing should be the pond for the ducklings to swim in. Oh, the canal that extended from the mountain was also very expensive. So, this was a financial crisis caused by 30 chickens and 30 ducklings? Yelashanda shook his head with mixed feelings. The 3-month-old border herders returned to the farm and started to work at a young age. Because they were not familiar with the business at first, they thought that they needed to manage Yelashanda and Aodisai, so they followed the 2 sheep. As soon as Yelashanda and Aodisai came out of the sheepfold, the border herders drove them back into the sheepfold. It was the same back and forth. Yelashanda stomped his feet. So annoying. Do they need a border herder? What a joke. He was the most self-disciplined person on the farm, okay? The onlookers looked at each other. They saw the reflection of "we are still too naive" on each other's faces. But since the money had already been spent, they had to make a little struggle. Otherwise, wouldn't the money be wasted? Regarding the meeting on how to let the border herders know who they are herding, everyone sat in their chairs and scratched their feet. It seemed that there was no particularly useful way. The flowery shirt man raised his hand and suggested, "How about hiring a dog trainer?" As soon as he finished speaking, a lot of toilet paper was thrown at his face. The key point was that it had been used before. Spend money. Spend money. You only know how to spend money. One by one, you still have the nerve to say what you studied and what you came from. Have you seriously thought about why you are spending this money? The accountant in charge of the accounts seemed to have been suppressed for a long time. He wanted to throw the accounts book at these people's faces. If you don't raise chickens, you don't have to buy dogs. If you don't raise ducks, you don't have to dig ponds. If you don't dig ponds, you don't have to build canals. It's best if you don't open a farm, a negative voice said. Everyone served the toilet paper. The 2 special members of the meeting, Ba, obediently stayed by their dad's side, waiting for their dad to secretly pass them fruits from under the table. Although they had not studied finance or MBA, it did not prevent them from judging that this was a very bad company. The sheep were very worried. For example, the flowery shirt man, one of the core members of the company, was not in the mood for the meeting at all. He was busy passing fruits to Yelashanda and had forgotten himself. "We are a farm. If we don't raise chickens and ducks, is it still a farm?" "I vote to continue raising chickens and ducks," the spokesperson said. "We also have to continue building ponds. In the future, we can raise fish and develop in many ways. This is not all for the ducks. Do you think I am right?" There was applause at the scene. The chickens and ducks were successfully kept. So the next question was, should we hire a dog trainer or not? The finance department was speechless. It was almost time for lunch, and the meeting had not yet concluded. Everyone looked at the time and unanimously decided to have lunch first. The humans went for lunch, and the 2 sheep stayed in the meeting room to eat the fruits that the humans had not touched. Otherwise, it would be a waste. "This company is terrible," Yelashanda complained while eating. "Well, I saw the account book. It is really terrible." Aodisai did not read it on purpose. It was mainly because the account book of the company was scattered everywhere, and he accidentally saw it. From January of last year to now, XXXX yuan has been spent. Wow, this money is enough to raise a group of me. Yelashanda was stunned. There is no group of you. There is only one you in this world. Aodisai kissed the beautiful and cute little lamb and fed his small tomato. "Hey, why are you suddenly so emotional?" Yelashanda was shy. After eating the small tomato, he jumped up and said, "I want more." Aodisai, who spoiled him, pushed all the fruit baskets in front of him for him to choose. The sheep's life was only about eating and playing. Whether the human company collapsed or not, they had nothing to do with it. Although that was what he said, Yelashanda was still too enthusiastic. He felt that it was better to buy more delicious food to improve his life than to hire a dog trainer. After discussing with Otis, they brought the 2 border shepherds to the chicken shed. There were 30 chicks and 30 ducklings. Most of the time, they would move around. Only a small portion of them stayed in the chicken shed. They would only come back when they were fed. There were many places on the farm that were under construction. When construction was done, they would dig the soil. When digging the soil, there would be insects and earthworms. The chickens and ducklings liked to join in the fun, but this would affect the master's work progress. Just lock them up? No, that would be too cruel. Yolashanda sighed. No matter how good an MBA was, he couldn't control a group of naughty chickens and ducklings. The two shepherds followed the shepherds everywhere to block the chickens and ducklings. They worked hard to drive the group of little things that disturbed the master's work together on centralized management. In the morning, they drove the chickens and ducklings to the vegetable field to eat insects. The insects in the morning were particularly rampant. One by one, they climbed to conspicuous places and ate the vegetable leaves stained with morning dew. Although the chickens and ducklings were stupid, they may have insect radar. They pecked accurately at the insects. Under the correction of the shepherds, the chickens and ducklings developed the good habit of only eating insects and not vegetable leaves since childhood. This directly shocked the company's shareholders. The more imaginative ones even suspected that these small animals had attended a training class overnight. At noon, the sun was a little higher. The shepherds drove the chickens and ducklings to the shade of the tree to rest. While the chickens and ducklings were sleeping on the ground, the shepherds also lay down and closed their eyes for a while. As for Yolashanda and his wife, they didn't go to work in the afternoon. They went back to rest. As the saying goes, imperceptible influence. It didn't take long for the shepherds to find the joy of herding chickens and ducklings. Whether the shepherd joined or not, they would wake up early and work late to manage a total of 60 chickens and ducklings. This was too much of a sense of accomplishment. The autumn rain and the cold happened on the night of the completion of the pond. The heavy rain fell from the sky and filled the pond. Outside the sheep pen, the wind and rain were blowing. Yolashanda leaned against the door, worried about the koi under the water wheel. What if the koi escaped when the water was full? This was the property of their sheep pen. Thunder and lightning. A.O. Daisai quickly pulled him in. The fish are not important. Come in and hide. Why hide? Yolashanda insisted on taking a step forward. If I did not do anything wrong in my life, even if the heavens struck me, I would not be struck by lightning. Boom. The sound of thunder interrupted Yolashanda's words. He was so frightened that he quickly retracted his leg. Damn it, such a big thunder. Even if he did not do anything wrong, he would be afraid, right? A.O. Daisai laughed and quickly protected the little bear in a corner of the sheep pen. He touched his cold ears. Don't be afraid. Touch your ears. You won't be scared. Yolashanda's nose turned sour. Meh. A.O. Daisai was still the best. The next morning, the sky was clear. However, when Yolashanda came out, he saw that the flowers on the lawn had withered and withered. Damn it, they had only bloomed for a few days. There was also the koi that he was most concerned about. He anxiously called A.O. Daisai. Quick, help me count. Are there any missing? The two shepherds stood beside the water wheel and focused on counting the fish. There's one more here. 12. No, I've counted this one. Yolashanda said confidently. Look, there's a mole at the bottom left corner of his mouth. I've counted him. Oh, he had counted this one. That meant that there was still one more that was missing. After searching carefully, he still could not find it. Yolashanda was quite sad. However, the pond was about to be filled with fish seedlings. Later, A.O. Daisai brought him a grass carp seedling, making a total of 12 fish. Yolashanda did not care whether it was a red carp or not. As long as there were enough fish, it was fine. In fact, Yolashanda paid the most attention to the grass carp because it could be eaten when it grew up. Chow mem meh. Add it to our porridge, thank you. Chapter 342. It could only be said that the men in the house were not attentive enough. They did not realize that the sheep had stolen the sun and caught the grass carps in the pond to raise them as koi. Or perhaps they had realized, but did not care. After the autumn rain, it was sunny for a few days. The grass in front of the sheep pen finally regained its vitality. Even the sunflowers showed colorful smiles. This flourishing age was what Yelishanda wished for. Taking advantage of the good weather, all the able-bodied men on the farm went out to harvest the crops. First were the sunflowers, but now they had turned into melon seeds. The strong men put on their full farm work gear and worked in the fields. All the small animals on the farm, including the sheep, chickens, and ducklings, not including the fish in the pond, were all shuttling back and forth in the sunflower field, picking up melon seeds to eat. The border herders did not eat melon seeds, but they had fun. They were in the middle of their age and had endless energy in their bodies, so they vented it in the fields. In the quiet field, someone suddenly shouted, "Hey, come and see! There's a nest of birds here." A nest of birds? This was new. Immediately, all the people and animals who liked to watch the fun rushed to the same place to see the birds. Sure enough, the place where the sunflower's stem and leaves were connected was built by the birds. There were 3 birds that had not grown feathers yet. They looked like 3 small meatballs. One look, and you could tell that they were too young. What should we do? The people looked around and were worried. The pole has been cut down. Will Mother Bird come back with only 1 pole left? It was said that if a stranger approached, the baby bird would be contaminated with other people's breath. The mother bird would not come back. The main reason was that the autumn wind was blowing at night. The remaining stem could not withstand the wind and would fall down. People who liked to raise birds came forward and took down the nest. The mother bird will not come back. Raise it yourself. Everyone was happy to see this. Almost everyone had a pet to take care of. Yelishanda was eating melon seeds and watching the fun. He was worried about the birds, but since there were people who were willing to raise them, he continued to eat melon seeds. But how should he say it? Raw melon seeds were not delicious. Fried melon seeds were delicious. He was waiting for the farm to make fried melon seeds. With nothing to watch, the animals dispersed in a hubbub. The humans working hard and the animals eating melon seeds leisurely formed a sharp contrast. Who wouldn't envy these happy babies who only knew how to eat, drink, and poop? After spending 2 days, people finally cut down all the sunflower plates and stuck them on the poles. They waited for the sun to dry the sunflower seeds a little more. The UV rays in the highlands were very strong. If one was not careful, they would peel off their skin. For example, when his friends advised him to avoid the sun, he did not listen. He even said that the sun was good. It was neither hot nor cold, and it was very comfortable. In the end, 2 days later, the skin on his body began to peel, and he felt a burning pain after bathing. The flowery shirt man had no choice but to buy sunburn ointment and sunscreen. He asked the man in the white t-shirt to help him apply it. Feeling extremely uncomfortable, he looked at Yelishanda's fair and cute face and said indignantly, "Hey, why is Yang 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 fine?" Yang 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 had also been in the sun for 2 days, but that little face was still white and clean, and her nose was still pink. Was this reasonable? The white t-shirt man patted him on the shoulder and mocked. "Little lambs are originally highland animals, aren't you? You southerner." Hiss! This slap made the flowery shirt man's soul leave his body. He quickly begged for mercy. "Brother, be gentle. I'm going to die." The person outside kicked the door open and said as he came in, "What are you doing? What are you doing? In broad daylight. Go to hell." The flowery shirt man smiled and pointed at Yelishanda. Looking all sloppy, this cute little lamb loved to follow them. They're a pair of eyes watching. We are open and above board. Don't use your dirty thoughts to speculate about our friendship. That seemed to be the case. Yelishanda looked at the person with sincere eyes, as if to say, "Don't treat me like a thing. I'm here watching, okay?" That person, he was probably thinking, "This little thing really treats me like a thing." They did not know how other people raised sheep. Anyway, they raised sheep casually on their farm. They could do whatever they wanted and go wherever they wanted. Anyway, there was nothing wrong with it. Sometimes, when everyone was eating, the little lamb would come over and look at them. How cruel must one be to ignore it? Anyway, no one present could do it. Whether it was steamed buns or noodles, they would at least give some to the lamb. At first, they just used chopsticks to pick up a little bit. After all, who would eat noodles for a proper lamb? However, Yelishanda was like a primary school student asking for snacks. After eating, he wanted more. The flowery shirt man who spent money to buy them could not stand it anymore. Did they lack this little bit of food? They did not lack food. So he directly used a plate to give them a plate of plain noodles with salt and flavor. The others wanted to say something, but stopped. They did not know what to say and could only wish the lamb good luck. She was so young. Don't be fed to death by the flowery shirt man. That night, after dinner, Aodisai went back to sleep. Yulashanda stayed in the living room to watch TV. He promised to go back to sleep after watching 2 episodes. However, after watching 2 episodes, the flowery shirt man's friend drove out to buy barbecue and beer. It smelled so good. Yulashanda decided to take a look before going back to sleep. Why did it smell so good? The barbecue in the Highlands was big and oily. The person who was fiddling with the barbecue suddenly thought of something. He looked at Yulashanda and got up to persuade Yulashanda to leave. It's late at night. What are you doing here alone? Go back to the pen and sleep. Go, go, go. What was he doing? What was he doing? Yang Yang's weak and helpless body was pushed out of the door. Yulashanda was very unhappy. He was bullying the lamb. He did not allow her to eat, but he did not allow her to look. He was so petty. Yulashanda made a feint and went back to the other side. In terms of skills, he was the best boyfriend in the grasslands. What's wrong? The flowery shirt man was puzzled. What was he doing? Why was he suddenly targeting his lamb? Couldn't he just take a look? The person who pushed Yulashanda out of the door said, "There are lamb skewers on the table. I heard that animals will go crazy when they smell the meat of their own kind." Although he did not know whether it was true or not, there was such a saying. The flowery shirt man was not calm anymore. He quickly took a tender barbecued bun from the table and stuffed it into Yang Yang's mouth. Okay. Go back. Hurry. The fragrant barbecued bun was not bad. It was an unexpected surprise. Yulashanda happily prepared to leave. But when he thought that Aodisai did not have one, he turned back and wanted to take another one. However, no one understood his intentions. They only thought that he was not satisfied with the barbecued bun and wanted to eat barbecued meat skewers. This was very awkward, until Aodisai appeared at the door and called Yulashanda to go back to sleep. Everyone seemed to understand Yulashanda's request and quickly gave him another one. Okay. Your roommate is calling you to go back to sleep. Hurry up and go. Yulashanda, who received 2 barbecued buns, happily jumped in front of Aodisai. Smell it. Does it smell good? Thanks to Yulashanda, Aodisai was able to eat a sweet and delicious supper. If this was the reason why Yulashanda did not return to the sheepfold so late, he felt that it was understandable. It's delicious, but it's too little. Aodisai was still unsatisfied and licked his lips. You should be content. The steamed buns in the south are even smaller. Yulashanda vaguely complained. When he first saw the steamed buns in the north, he was shocked because they were so big. After eating, they were not sleepy. The 2 sheep decided to walk around the farm. Well, to be precise, they walked directly to the pond to see if the chicken shed was still okay. How about the fry? It could be said that they were worried sick about the farm. There were already frogs croaking in the pond. Aodisai said, "See, it's not good to live by the pond." Yulashanda said, Yes, you're right. At night, the border shepherds would follow their owners. They would not patrol the farm or guard the gate. Why was it like this? Aodisai did not understand. His impression of dogs was that they were very hardworking and loyal. Whether it was the police dog or Scar, they were all investigative pioneers. Yulashanda returned to the sheepfold and lay down on the straw mat. He sighed and said, "Dogs are dogs. Border shepherds are border shepherds. They are very smart, but they will never be police dogs. Do you know why?" Aodisai laid down beside Little Bear and looked at him attentively. Why? Yulashanda kissed him and continued to explain. For example, if a border shepherd becomes a police dog and meets a bad guy, the police officer will let him go. He will think, "Do you think I'm stupid? Why don't you go when it's so dangerous?" Although Aodisai's expression did not change much, Yulashanda felt that he had succeeded in amusing Aodisai. He continued to talk excitedly. Another example. If a border shepherd becomes a police dog, it will be the first to run when it is chased by criminals. Haha. In conclusion, border shepherds were too smart. They had their own ideas and were often not so easy to be tamed. Are they okay? A.O. Daisai recalled the two border shepherds on the farm. He did not seem to think that they were smarter. If they were not smart, they would be as hardworking and loyal as Scar. Speaking of Scar, Yelishanda leaned into A.O. Daisai's arms and quietly missed those times. Of course, I'm not saying that Scar is stupid. A.O. Daisai nodded softly and did not speak anymore. He just silently accompanied Yelishanda to sleep. The moon was bright tonight and the stars were sparse. He guessed that tomorrow would be a sunny day. Yelishanda, who had enjoyed the sweetness, still wanted to eat roasted steamed buns the next night. So he deliberately waited until late at night to see if anyone would buy supper. However, it seemed that they were not buying today. Damn it. Yelishanda could only go back to the sheep pen to sleep unhappily. Seeing the sheep's back disappear into the night, the man in the flowery shirt sent a WeChat message to his friend. Hey, he's gone. Quick, bring the supper in. So he had bought supper, but hid it in the car. The wind was a little stronger at night. Yelishanda had just returned to the sheep pen when he stopped and sniffed the smell mixed in the wind. Was he too greedy? He actually smelled the smell of barbecue? No, it must be barbecue. Yelishanda angrily stuck his head out and shouted at A.O. Daisai, "Let's go." "What are you going to do?" A.O. Daisai asked patiently. It was so late. Did the little bear not want to sleep? They did this and that, and that and that, boo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Yelishanda exaggerated and described the whole process of how he had been cheated. A.O. Daisai was also unhappy when he heard it. Was the cute Yelishanda not worth a roasted steamed bun? Let's go. A.O. Daisai's eyes became serious, and he walked in front of Yelishanda. Everyone in the house was sitting around a table drinking beer and eating barbecue. They were enjoying the food when they suddenly heard a knock on the door. They did not think much and went to open the door. Halfway through, they remembered that everyone in the farm was in the house. Then who was outside? They took a closer look. It turned out to be two sheep. Boo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Didn't they go back to the sheep pen to sleep? The author has something to say. Otis, I'm a very protective person. Chapter 343. Could it be that it was just a ruse? Not to return to the sheepfold to sleep, but to call his roommates over to eat? Oh no, they had gotten used to eating here. They might even stay here every day. The people took 2 roasted buns and sent away the 2 greedy sheep. Then they decided that they would never eat supper again. If they wanted to eat, they would go out to eat. When this was said, some people looked out at the dark night and thought, forget about autumn. How could they go out in winter? It would be covered with thick snow. Anyway, from that day onwards, Yelishanda did not catch any humans for supper. What did this mean? It meant that humans had collectively given up on supper in order to avoid sacrificing 2 buns. Even adults knew that this price was too high. Yelishanda was taught a lesson. This incident made him know that human nature was the most unpredictable thing in the world. P.S. He was so angry. However, A.O. Daisai had a different opinion. He felt that the people really liked Yelishanda. Perhaps they did this because they did not want Yelishanda to develop a strange eating habit. Although roasted buns were delicious, eating too much was not beneficial. The sunflowers in the field were exposed to the sun for a few days. After a few days, it was time to harvest. The people wore gloves and came to the field again to collect the big plates. The able-bodied men sat on the flat ground in a picturesque manner. They put the sunflower seeds into containers and then sold the ones that needed to be sold. They packed up and sent the ones that needed to be sent. This was probably the first profit since the farm started. For a moment, everyone was filled with emotions. The remaining sunflower seeds were fried by the farm themselves. The meat was fragrant and crispy, and the skin was thin. It tasted delicious. Yelishanda had nothing to do. He could eat half a basin of sunflower seeds a day. The main reason was that the sunflower seeds were grown on the farm. He could eat as much as he wanted. After almost all the crops were harvested, the weather became noticeably colder. At this time, the people realized that the fish in the pond could not withstand the cold. When the temperature dropped below 5 degrees Celsius, they would clear the pond. However, those fish seedlings had only been released for a month. Who could they clear the pond to now? He had miscalculated. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have raised grass carps. Even if he had raised grass carps, he shouldn't have waited until autumn to plant seedlings. Therefore, he had suffered a loss this time. Gradually, the sunflowers had been planted for nothing. Yulashanda looked at the fish pond and thought to himself, so what if we clear the pond? No one will want to take it out. We can eat it ourselves. There's so little. Won't we finish it in minutes? It seemed that he had no other choice but to eat it himself. After noticing this problem, there was always fish on the farm. People were not stingy with giving fish to Yang Yang and the border herders, but they were afraid that they would choke on fish bones, so they only fed them fish soup mixed with porridge or mixed with rice. The food on the farm was very good, and the sheep grew quickly. Of course, the chicks and ducklings also grew quickly. They were no longer as cute as they were when they were young, but gradually became edible. Yulashanda, slurp. Sorry, his mind was already thinking of the delicious chicken stewed with mushrooms. The cold winter was coming. The attentive man in the white t-shirt bought an indoor fish tank and fished out the koi fish from the small pond on the water wheel to spend the winter. This cost was not a small sum of money. So what the hell did they do? Sheep were said to be able to withstand the cold, but these two sheep always squeezed in the kitchen and occupied the center of the fire. They did not look like they could withstand the cold at all. Well, how should he put it? Who would want to shine when there was a fire to roast them? Who said that furry sheep could not be roasted by the fire? The main reason was that they squeezed in the kitchen and affected the people who were cooking. To put it bluntly, they were in the way. So after some discussion, they installed an air conditioner in the sheep pen. Oops, another messy expense. In the past, there was no air conditioner in the sheep pen. Yulashanda would get up early in the morning to invade the human territory. Now, it was different. When the temperature outside dropped to about 10 degrees, he turned on the heater and slept until he woke up naturally every day. He felt that the humidity in the house was too high, so he pulled the remote control and changed it to dehumidification mode. Sometimes, the temperature would drop suddenly. Before the grass carps in the fish pond could finish eating, the temperature would drop to below 5 degrees. Yang Yang felt the sudden change in temperature and went to the pond early the next morning to take a look. Sure enough, the grass carps all turned up with their white bellies facing upwards. It looked like they had died with their eyes wide open. When humans found out about the tragedy in the fish pond, they put on their swimming clothes and went down to fish up the fish. The process was so painful that some shareholders almost wanted to break up because of it. Boo-hoo. As no one ate the fish, they could only throw them away. Regarding this matter, the shareholders of the farm held a serious meeting to find out which genius wanted to raise grass carps. They raised their hands to receive the torture of toilet paper. Later, they found out that raising grass carps was a unanimous decision. Oh, that was fine. As there was nothing to do on the farm during winter, the people on the farm started to form groups of 2 and took turns to take leave. The flowery shirt man wanted to be in the same group as the white t-shirt man, but after thinking about it, wouldn't it be a waste of talent to have 2 awesome people in the same group? So, he chose to be in the same group as the others. The white t-shirt man felt that the flowery shirt man had finally grown a brain. What was the reason? Was it love? That's right, it was love for the sheep. According to the white t-shirt man, the flowery shirt man even wanted to bring them home for the new year. Bringing 2 sheep for the spring festival? Yulashanda and Ao Daisai rejected from the bottom of their hearts. They were not afraid of anything, but they were afraid of being taken away on the way. After all, Yulashanda was so cute. Thanks to the variable frequency air conditioner, the 2 sheep were able to have a warm winter on the highlands. It was just that the grass and sunflowers at the entrance of a sheep pen were all frozen to death. When Yulashanda was free, she would hide in the air-conditioned room with Ao Daisai and help the farm to calculate the losses. The more they calculated, the more silent they became. It was over. The farm was losing money every day, and the animals they were raising were all rice worms. So, the 2 sheep prayed that the farm would quickly open for business. Let these 2 business geniuses think of ways to get rich. Actually, winter was also the peak season on the highlands, as there were hot springs and ski resorts here. Not sure which genius shareholder suddenly thought that the farm could also be used as a guest house, So he put up a guest house for business and posted a picture of the owner of the guest house, the flowery shirt man. The flowery shirt man questioned in the WeChat group, "Why me?" Others, "Because you are handsome." It had to be said that this picture might be useful. Not long after the room was posted, there were customers who made reservations, but there were not many of them. The planner thought for a while and put up the cute picture of a sheep. It was really useful. The number of customers increased exponentially, and the two people who stayed behind could not cope with it. Yolashanda watched as the farm became lively. His initial excitement and happiness turned into nervousness and worry. Because the business was so good, it was said that there were not enough rooms. He was afraid that his comfortable sheep pen would be requisitioned. Humans, you don't have to worry about nothing. The customers did come to check in because they saw this super cute sheep, but they also had the mentality of trying their luck. After all, it was normal for businesses to put up fake pictures to attract customers. Maybe when they arrived, they would find out that it was the work of filters and beauty filters, or maybe the sheep lived in a smelly pen and were not easy to get close to. But after they arrived, the customers were super satisfied. The sheep here were all barefaced. There were no filters or beauty filters. What you saw in the picture was what it looked like in reality. And the animation was even cuter. The key was that there was no distance between them. The moment they checked in, they saw the sheep in the hall. After that, they could still see the sheep for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Yolashanda, who did not know that his picture was open for business, was happy and puzzled. Why did the business of this lousy farm seem to be doing well? But since the customers liked the sheep so much, they would appear more often and interact with the customers. They would take pictures and eat the good food they brought. Border Shepherd. The customers seemed to be attracted by the sheep. We have to work harder too. The customers who checked in would also visit the sheep pen. Seeing that the sheep pen was so comfortable and warm, they felt that the owner of this farm must be a gentle and kind person. The praise of the old customers was an important channel to attract new customers. This was great. From winter to spring, the farm's business was booming. After the Lantern Festival, all the major shareholders came back to gather. Because the spring plowing had begun, they had to work. Opening a guest house was just a side business. Their main business was farming. Plants that bloomed in season were planted in large batches. The grass that froze to death last year was replaced in large batches. New fish seedlings were also arranged. The funds were flowing away like a gust of wind. If the customers were free and were willing to experience the fun of farming, the shareholders did not mind. Yolashanda, free labor is free labor. You make it sound so grand. But Sai, there are really such people. They spend a lot of money on plane tickets to fly to such a beautiful place, but waste time farming in the farm. Yolashanda, I don't understand. As the people entering and leaving the farm became more mixed, there were incidents of things being stolen. The shareholders hurriedly held a meeting. Although it might be useless, it was just a courtesy meeting. They reminded everyone to keep their belongings and strengthened the surveillance of the farm. As a member of the meeting, Yolashanda was touched on the head. Did you hear that? Be careful. Yolashanda did not take it to heart at all. He felt that no one in this world could steal him silently, unless they used drugs. Wasn't it a coincidence? On the second night after the meeting, an unidentified person sneaked into the farm and threw a Ruggiamo at the door of the sheep pen. Oh, meat, Ruggiamo. Alexander wanted to take a bite out of it, even in his dreams. But was he that stupid? A decent person would not throw a Ruggiamo at the sheep pen. This stranger was sneaky and obviously had bad intentions. Thus, Yolashanda did not hesitate to close the door with his mouth. Out of sight, out of mind. But it was a Ruggiamo. Yolashanda turned around and faced the door with his butt. He discussed with Ao Daisai, "Do you think I'm too suspicious? What if the stranger just wanted to feed us? Then wouldn't we lose a Ruggiamo?" Ao Daisai dispelled his doubts and shook his head. "You're not thinking too much. That stranger did not have good intentions. Even if he did not want to steal from them, he wanted to hurt them." That one sentence shattered Yolashanda's fantasy. He felt that the person outside the door was despicable. Did he know how despicable his actions were? It was worse than SSS-level torture. In short, it deeply hurt the fragile heart of a little lamb. The incident of a stranger throwing food at the sheep pen in the middle of the night was quickly discovered by the shareholders. They found out that the stranger was a guest who stayed that day. However, the guest left the next day and did not leave any evidence. He got lucky. Fortunately, the sheep was not greedy. Why was that? Did he not like to eat Ruggiamo? In order to satisfy his curiosity, the flowery shirt man looked at his breakfast. It was a Ruggiamo. He came to the sheep pen and tried to pass it to Yolashanda. "Thank you, good person." Yolashanda happily took the Ruggiamo and shared it with A.O. Daisai. The author has something to say. Others try it. Flowery shirt, try it and you'll starve. Haha, he's so naive. This article was about 300,000 words long and was coming to an end. I'll update 3 more chapters tomorrow. Chapter 344. Finally, Flowery Shirt realized that. Bad. Very smart. But the price he paid was too heavy. There was no cooking in the kitchen today, only Ruggiamo. Without it, he had to drive out to buy some, otherwise he would have to starve until lunch. Everyone listened to the result of the Flowery Shirt's probing. They were curious while holding back their laughter. Even the sheep knows that it can't eat the food given by strangers. Does the border herder, who is known as the smartest, know? As the saying goes, the weather is unpredictable. What if in the future the border herders also encounter bad people to feed them? Since the danger was impossible to guard against, they might as well do a drill. So the shareholders asked a new guest to cooperate, pretending to sneakily feed the border herders stewed beef. According to the guests, the 2 border shepherds were not afraid of strangers. They came to sniff the stewed beef and accepted it with a smile. After hearing this, the shareholders had different expressions, but without exception, they were all cursing the silly dog in their hearts. The gossip in the farm spread like wildfire, and Yolashanda heard about it in the blink of an eye. He sighed and said, "Aya, this group of people are too stupid. The border herders must have known that the stewed beef was not poisonous, and that's why they ate it. Why didn't they come to Yolashanda for such a good thing? Because the plants on the farm were all bought with a huge sum of money. Some of them were bought with budding flower buds that would bloom not long after being planted. If they were accidentally planted and died, it was simple. They could just change to another one. The company was rich, so they could do whatever they wanted." Not long after, Yolashanda's sheep pen regained its vitality. The grass was green and the flowers were red. The beautiful water wheel spun day and night. 11 koi fish swam happily in the small pond. The fake grass carp was still there, but was bigger than last year. Maybe it was because of the good food. Yolashanda had been eyeing the grass carp covetously, but when she saw that it had grown so big, she couldn't bear to part with it. The main reason was that the grass carp and the koi carp had been living together for a long time. Even the grass carp looked very delicate and pretty. Could this be what people often said? One is marked by the company one keeps? After an autumn and winter, the weight of the 2 goats had doubled. The border herders were simply not enough for them. The possessive Yolashanda did not allow the border herders to invade his and A.O. Daisai's territory. The main reason was that the border herders liked to play with the koi in their sheepfold. This was something that could not be tolerated. Since the shareholders of the farm were all young masters who did not know anything, they felt that it was normal to see owner of the border herds hated iron for naught, becoming steel. After spending so much time and money to buy the shepherd dogs, they were not as brave as 2 sheep. He simply did not know what to do with them. Once the weather warmed up, the number of snakes, insects, rats, and ants increased. On this day, everyone was working in the field when a huge snake suddenly came out of a hole. Its entire body was grayish-black, and its head was triangular. It was obviously a poisonous snake. "It's a viper. Quick, back off," the flowery shirt man shouted. When he saw the snake, his first reaction was to avoid it. Whoa, because he was really afraid of snakes. The two border herders barked at the poisonous snake, but they did not dare to go forward. They were even scared and retreated. Their owner also did not want them to be in danger. He quickly thought of a way to drive them away. On the other hand, the two goats were extremely calm. They glanced at the snake's appearance. Oh, they confirmed that they had seen the snake's eyes before. Moreover, its habits were not considered fierce. Maybe he was just awakened from hibernation and was still confused. The white t-shirt man took out an iron clamp used to light a fire. He stretched out his hand and clamped the poisonous snake's 7 inches. Then he said, "I'll find a place to throw it away." He did not intend to kill it. This decision made Yolashanda quite surprised. He thought that this group of people would kill the poisonous snake. He did not expect that they would just find a place to release it. Therefore, he and A.O. Daisai accompanied the white t-shirt man and escorted him to release the poisonous snake. The people who stayed behind could not help but be curious. Were the goats so calm because they did not know the strength of the poisonous snake, or were they really brave? Who knew? But no matter what, just based on the fact that the goats were the farm's representative, they were fully deserving of being the farm's big brother. On a sunny day, the people led the goats around the farm to shoot a promotional video. Because they were about to open for business, there was a wave of publicity. How could they advertise well? Spend money. The finance department, who was usually stingy, allocated a huge sum of money for the first time. Perhaps he felt that the farm was about to make money, so he could not be stingy with publicity. With the promotion of the opening day discount, the officially opened farm welcomed its first wave of customers. Their first impression when they visited the farm was, wow, such a huge investment. Is the boss crazy? It was not an exaggeration to say that every exquisite corner of the farm was filled with the fragrance of money. They had never seen a farm with such a large layout. According to the introduction of knowledgeable tourists, some of the flowers were expensive varieties that were flown in. They were not available in the domestic market. With more customers, the border herders had work to do. They were responsible for guarding the flowers and plants, just like how they guarded the chickens and ducks in the past. They did not let the chickens and ducks hurt the flowers and plants. They could look at them, but they were not allowed to destroy them. Yolashanda and A.O. Daisai worked hard to maintain the order of the sightseeing. They would lead the tourists to the beautiful places in the farm, just like tour guides. Then they would take pictures with the tourists and eat the delicious food they brought. Whenever he saw a child throwing litter, Alexander would pick up the litter and throw it into the trash can in front of everyone. "See," he said, "this is the correct way to throw rubbish. Children, it's over. In my mom's eyes, not only am I worse than a dog, now I'm worse than sheep." Every age group had their own unique preferences for the scenery. For example, the group of retired sisters loved the red and purple flower fields. Yolashanda would lead them to the flower fields and receive their surprised expressions. Artistic youths loved the white windmills on the grassy slope. This was a sacred place for flowers. Standing under the windmills, no matter how concave they were, they looked good. Little freshmen loved the swings under the big trees. They sat down and gently swung on their tiptoes. The sun shone through the leaves and shone on the girls' elegant skirts. The years were peaceful. The group of uncles loved fishing and farmhouse entertainment. They cooked and drank with their friends or played with the birds in the farm. As for the sunflower field, it was a place that men and women of all ages loved. Praise, 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 praise for the scenery, praise for the cute animals, and praise for the tall and handsome staff. The most important thing was that these handsome men were also in charge of playing and chatting with the tourists. It was too awesome. They had to write a guide and recommend it to the whole world. It was just that the name of the farm was Happy Farm. It felt too casual and did not match the status of the farm. It would be better if it was a better name. After a day of work, The shareholders wore the big pants that they had changed into after taking a shower. They were tired and slumped on the chairs, thinking about the content of the meeting later. What should they say? All right, the feedback and suggestions of the guests. The first thing that was dissed the most was the name of the farm. They who had temporarily lost their memories asked in unison, "Who was the one who came up with this stupid name?" No way. No one was willing to take responsibility? Could it be that the dogs came up with it? The person who was sure that he was wronged said seriously. Bien Mu's eyes changed, as if he was thinking, does it have anything to do with me? Sheep Memme, Yolashanda, who was dozing off, heard that and opened his eyes. He thought, it has nothing to do with me. But after listening carefully, he realized that this group of people was not trying to push the blame on him. They were just discussing changing Happy Farm to Sheep Memme Farm. According to the recent reactions of the guests, Sheep Memme was mentioned the most, with a 100% positive rating. Okay, the matter of changing the name was settled. Next, the guests felt that there were not enough animals in the farm. They suggested raising more sheep, deer, silly roe deer, and so on. Everyone felt that this suggestion was not bad. Since it was Sheep Memme's farm, how could it be justified with only 2? The flowery shirt man disagreed. Don't you realize that our Sheep Memme is different from other ordinary Sheep Memme? If we buy another batch, what if they are not cute or clever? It will bring a drop in reputation. We want to create a brand and feelings. If we can promote it, 2 will be enough. After saying that, he added, of course, if you only want to be an ordinary farm, then pretend that I did not say anything. Everyone felt that it made sense. Then let's buy deer and swan and so on. Since they had money coming in recently, they could buy. Throughout the meeting, Yolashanda felt like he was floating. God, the farm was going to be renamed Sheep Memme Farm. Moreover, they were the main promotion target of the farm. All the resources were on them, and they were worthy of being called the big brother of the farm. Yolashanda was not the only one who was sleepy during the meeting. The flowery shirt man was also sleepy, so he wanted to peel a coffee candy for himself to wake up. But he forgot that there was a Sheep Memme beside him. He had just poured the coffee candy into his hand when it went into Sheep Memme's mouth. Sure enough, Yolashanda was energized with the candy in his mouth. Following that, he actively participated in the meeting. After all, it was the startup stage. Although it was tiring, the company was his home. Without the company, there would be no home. Startup, Sheep Memme. Ao Daisai, we're going to debut. What kind of sheep do you think the farm will give us? I feel that they're not very reliable. At this moment, they were in the sheep pen, chatting as usual before bed. Ao Daisai said, cute, excellent kind. There were too many to count. As long as it was a good point, it could be applied to Yolashanda. Yolashanda was very happy when he heard that. Then he felt that Ao Daisai's sheep must be gentle, reliable, and very good. It was a pity that those who did not have the chance to know Ao Daisai could only see a 10,000th of Ao Daisai's good points through words and photos. Sigh. As they chatted, Ao Daisai was half asleep. Sometimes Yolashanda could not even get a response from him. Yolashanda looked at the clock on the wall. That's right, there was a clock in their sheep pen. Maybe this was the treatment of being the boss of the farm. It was already very late. Usually, Yolashanda would be asleep at this time. But today, didn't he eat a coffee candy? The flowery shirt harmed him. Damn it. Yolashanda kept tossing and turning, which affected Ao Daisai's sleep. He woke up and said, can't you sleep? Yes. Yolashanda turned around and put some distance between them. Don't worry about me. I will fall asleep after counting the sheep. Then Yolashanda started counting sheep in his heart. As he was counting too seriously, Ao Daisai could also sense him counting sheep. Occasionally, he even counted wrong 1 or 2 sheep. The author has something to say. Joe, narrow-minded, isn't the main point. Chapter 345. The shareholders were all hot-headed idiots. They changed the name whenever they wanted. To be honest, the name Sheep Memme Farm was not much better than Happy Farm. It was the pot calling the kettle black. The only difference was that Happy Farm was abstract while Sheep Memme was concrete. Once people saw Sheep Memme Farm, the cute face of the little sheep would automatically appear in their minds. At the same time, a large number of videos and photos of sheep meme would be released. The effect that the shareholders wanted was to make Two Sheep Meme a high-end brand. The positioning would be tall, rich, and handsome. The sheep design would be fashionable and unique. It would make people want to know more about it and create an impression of awesome. The effect that they achieved in reality was to attract a group of children below 10 years old. They would rely on their own efforts to bring their whole family over to spend money. The shareholders good, the effect was not bad. Yolashanda, tall, rich, and handsome sheep. This was a tricky angle that he had not thought of. Fortunately, the business was still good. It was not to the extent that the farm could not make ends meet. Actually, after such a long time, Yolashanda already understood that this group of people was not serious about starting a business. They were probably just doing it for fun, to vent the pressure from other things. As a well-mannered sheep, Yolashanda did not want to find out other people's secrets. He only wanted to do his job well and fight on the front lines with Ao Daisai. Today was another day of taking many group photos. The wind was a little strong, and the scarf around the neck of the lady who was taking the photo with them was loosened. Yolashanda reacted quickly and helped to catch the scarf that was almost blown away by the wind. He recognized the pattern on the scarf. It seemed to be a luxury brand. The lady was rich and generous. She generously tied the new scarf around Yolashanda's neck and said, "You have been standing here the whole day. Are you tired?" The soft scarf blocked the wind blowing at his neck. Although Alisanda was not cold, he still felt a trace of warmth. Suddenly, he was a little surprised. Thinking back, people had always praised him for being cute and awesome, but this was the first time someone asked him if he was tired. Yolashanda was so touched that he stared at her for a few seconds and then kissed her on the cheek. Ao Daisai wouldn't be angry, right? Yes, Ao Daisai would only be hostile to males. Just like the tourists who were concerned about Yolashanda, he looked at Yolashanda with admiration and care. His eyes were full of affection. Yolashanda seemed to know that she looked pretty, so she turned around smugly. Why didn't she think that she could dress up like this? What a waste of her youth. It was not known which tourist took a video of this. Not long after, Little Sheep with a Scarf went viral on the internet. Suddenly, many tourists came to see him. These tourists, without exception, would bring Yolashanda a little gift and then enjoy a pure and innocent kiss from Little Sheep. Due to the fact that the first gift that the young lady gave to Yang was of a very high standard, the gifts that came after her were also of a high standard. Because of this, Alisanda managed to save up a lot of money. The floral shirt made a walk-in closet for him to store the gifts that the tourists gave him. There were scarves, sunglasses, hats, necklaces, and so on. Yolashanda woke up every day and stayed in the walk-in closet for a while. From his dazzling collection, he picked out an accessory that he wanted to wear today. Because there were too many things, he would sometimes have difficulty choosing. Ao Daisai became the person he asked. For example, this morning, Yolashanda was in a dilemma. A hat or a necklace? There was a mirror in front of Little Sheep, which reflected his and Ao Daisai's reflection. Although she also received a gift, Ao Daisai, who never dressed up, said, "I don't think the hat and necklace clash." Yolashanda heard this and immediately picked out a fancy hat and a shiny necklace to look for the floral shirt. No, Ao Daisai took away the hat that Yolashanda had picked out and picked out a plain, low-key hat. Of the two accessories, only one can be the main character. Otherwise, no one can shine. Just like him and Yolashanda, one of them was loved by everyone in a high-profile manner. As for him, he did not want to be the main character in the eyes of others. He was Yolashanda's main character. Okay, I'll listen to you. Ao Daisai, you're amazing. You make so much sense. Yolashanda said admiringly. He and Ao Daisai walked out of the room and found the floral shirt. Morning, are you wearing this today? Looking at the floral shirt, he knew that he was probably used to Little Sheep coming to him every morning with accessories for help. After helping Little Sheep, the floral shirt whistled. Today is a cool day, the brightest star in the night. Your taste is not bad. Yolashanda, who was praised, glanced at Ao Daisai and saw her winking at him. At this moment, Yolashanda felt very happy. He could always trust Daisai. They were not forced to work on the farm. In fact, no one asked them to work. Even if Yolashanda was in a bad mood and stayed in the sheepfold for the whole day, no one would think that he was slacking off. They would only think that he was not feeling well and find someone to take a look at him. Who would have thought that he was slacking off? But Yolashanda would not admit it. He was just giving himself a break. It was very reasonable, okay? In the first year that little sheep became popular, they earned back all the money that the farm had invested. This shocked all the shareholders. Because, although they always said that they were losing money, they had actually accepted this phenomenon and were prepared to continue losing money. Now that the money was back in their hands, they did not know what to do. The floral shirt peeled candy for little sheep and said, "Then continue to spend. First, fix up the sheepfold and build a luxurious one." Everyone said in unison, "Build? It's already luxurious enough." Yolashanda felt that they were so magical. In the past, when they were losing money, they had meetings. Now that they were earning money, they still had meetings. Who would believe that there was no hint of her sigh at all? Who knew? They might even be laughing at night. Others did not know, but Yolashanda was like this. In the second year that Little Sheep became popular, Little Sheep Farm added a buffet restaurant. The ingredients inside were very top quality. It was so luxurious that it made people speechless. Diners who came here were stunned. Moreover, the boss was very capricious and generous. He often held lucky draws and gave away gifts. The most delicious part of the top-grade bluefin tuna was actually eaten by the sheep. It was probably this scene that established the image of Little Sheep as tall, rich, and handsome sheep. Yolashanda. That's it. In the past, we could eat as much as we wanted. Actually, the taste was just so. It was said that there were many pet owners all over the country who wanted to make friends with Little Sheep on behalf of their daughters. Yolashanda was so scared that he quickly stuck close to Daisai, in case people did not know that she was taken. This year, he and Daisai had also grown up. They could finally do some secret things at night. Because of respect for their privacy, people did not install surveillance cameras in the sheepfold. Well, the truth was not that they respected privacy. It was because the two sheep had been too obedient since they were young that these careless people did not think of installing surveillance cameras. However, they did not shy away from being lovey-dovey wherever they went. Between two lovers, their actions and eyes could not lie. Some people with sensitive radars probably knew what was going on. The only thing that could be confirmed was that Flowery Shirt really did not know. He actually said that Yolashanda was not as cute as when she was young. He wanted to find a wife for Yolashanda and give birth to a mini version of Yolashanda. Daisai heard this and did not do anything. He just looked for opportunities to kick Flowery Shirt. Looking at how the Flowery Shirt man's legs were covered in bruises after being kicked by the sheep he had raised himself, the others were gloating. They pretended to comfort him and said, "Children have grown up. Adolescence is like this. Can't you just find a girlfriend for them?" Done with it? He was almost done for. Flowery Shirt was cheated by this group of bad friends. If he had not realized it and sent the ewe away in the middle of the night, the same day next year would have been his death anniversary. In the third year of the Little Sheep's popularity, new infrastructure was developed around the farm. The sheep farm was easier to reach. There was an endless stream of customers. Anyway, they made a lot of money. After the farm made money, people did not have any goals. Most of the shareholders had reached the age where it was time to get married and have children. Some shareholders took the dividends and left the farm, returning to the real world to take on their responsibilities. Alisanda felt that this friend of his who had left, no matter what kind of monsters he would face, would be very courageous. This was because he had once loved him for a period of time and allowed him to do whatever he wanted in this world of rules and regulations. He did not care about losses or profits, nor did he care about whether it was reasonable or not. In short, he was happy. Yolashanda had also complained that these people did not know what they were doing. But looking back, he realized that everyone needed a happy farm to keep him. The person who walked in society was not him. The person who hid in the happy farm was him. The second person to leave was the owner of the border herds. He took 2 border herds with him. No one had any objections. He raised the border herds. The friend who raised the chickens and ducks looked at the sky. Then, according to the usual practice, would he take the chickens and ducks with him when he left? This thought made him shudder. If he really brought them back, these chickens and ducks would end up being slaughtered by his mother and given away. One by one, the shareholders returned to the real world. However, the sheep farm did not close down. It just became a happy farm for another group of people. The last to leave were Flowery Shirt and White T-Shirt Man. They were very good friends. So good that White T-Shirt Man tried to take Yolashanda away. The reason was that he had cleaned the sheep pen for so many years. Was he not worthy? But so what? Compared to Yongbao was more important. Yolashanda and Ao Daisai, of course, followed Flowery Shirt and would not be separated. When the other party took them away, he directly said goodbye on the farm's official website. Yang is tired. The world is so big. Yang wants to go out and see the big world. What did this mean? Knowing that little sheep was not open for business, someone asked, "When will you return?" Flowery Shirt said, "The return date is uncertain. It may be on holiday or it may be open for business again." Yolashanda had brought happiness to so many people, but now he had to say goodbye. It could be expected that on the night of his indefinite leave, many people would be reminiscing about his goodness and his cuteness. The author has something to say. Happy Farm is a utopia for adults. Thank you, Yolashanda. There will be a chapter later. Chapter 346. After Meme announced its departure from the farm, no one saw any news about Meme again. In fact, there were many guesses at that time. Some guessed that Flowery Shirt sold Meme at a high price, while others guessed that Meme was sick and had to go offline. The rumors were quite ridiculous. Later, many people believed that Yolashanda and Ao Daisai were definitely gone. Little did they know that when all kinds of fake news were spreading on the internet, the 2 sheep were checking out the fun places in the country. As for overseas, it was too dangerous and they didn't want to go. The diligent Flowery Shirt made travel guides every day and picked scenic spots and entertainment places for Meme. At first, he encountered a big setback. For example, he called the day before to ask if he could bring pets into the scenic spots. The staff said yes, but the next day, they stopped the 3 of them. After all, they had never seen anyone bring 2 sheep to a scenic spot. Who knew if they were real pets? What if they were ingredients? Yolashanda, you're so rude. Have you ever seen an ingredient dressed in such a garish way? She explained in every possible way. Have you ever seen an ingredient dressed in such a garish way? He's wearing enough to buy a car of sheep. The staff reluctantly believed that the 2 sheep were not ingredients, but they were too big. They needed to buy tickets. Each sheep counted as half a ticket, so they had to buy 1. This was very cost-effective. The Flowery Shirt agreed readily. When they took the transportation in the scenic spots, the 3 of them took 1. Half a ticket was too worth it. Later, the Flowery Shirt applied for passports and pet licenses for the 2 sheep. When they encountered similar situations again, he took out the passports. There is only one word to describe the experience. Awesome. Yolashanda and Ao Daisai were like other tourists. They had a backpack on their backs. There was water, food, and other odds and ends. They wore hats and sunglasses. Hiking was their strength. Climbing was their specialty. Yolashanda was jumping and jumping. She didn't feel tired even after walking 10 kilometers. Occasionally, when she was hungry, she would ask the Flowery Shirt to open a bread for her. The Flowery Shirt was halfway up the mountain. His legs trembled as he held onto the handrail. Wait for me. He caught his breath and looked up. Damn, where are the sheep? Why are you looking for him? He's still behind. Ao Daisai already knew that they had left the Flowery Shirt behind, but Yolashanda left happily, so he did not bother about it. I'm hungry, but since he's not here, forget it. Yolashanda took out a piece of bread from Ao Daisai's backpack and aimed it at an uncle who was climbing the mountain, asking for help. The uncle was dumbfounded. At first, he thought that Yang was going to give the bread to him, but she actually said, Thank you. Fortunately, his family reminded him, no, Dad, Yang is asking you to help him open the box. Otherwise, Yolashanda would lose a loaf of bread. Oh, Uncle was very happy. He opened the bag with a smile and fed the bread to Yolashanda. Yolashanda brought another piece over and gestured for the other party to peel one for Ao Daisai. All right, this family not only fed Yolashanda and Ao Daisai bread, but also water. They asked curiously, where's your owner? The two snow-white sheep were dressed so nicely, so they must have an owner. The small tag on their necks also had a phone number written on it. He must not be able to win. In order to thank this family, Yolashanda generously gave them a hug and a kiss. He wished them a pleasant journey. The gentlemanly and adorable him left a good impression on everyone. After a short rest, both parties set off again. When people saw the sheep walking as if they were flying, they knew that they had guessed correctly. When they thought of the owner who was left behind, they felt very happy. Flowery shirt. The journey is not pleasant at all. Boo-hoo. When he reached the top of the mountain, Yolashanda and Ao Daisai were already eating boiled corn. Well, they bought it themselves because they had money in their pockets. Flowery shirt. You guys are so cruel. Because he was too tired, he did not want to carry his own backpack when he went down the mountain. So he wanted to put his own backpack on the sheep. However, none of the sheep that he had personally raised and the sheep that he had fed and drunk were willing to share his burden. This unpleasant experience made Flowery Shirt no longer want to bring the sheep to climb mountains. It was just like the unpleasant outdoor hike before. That was just asking for humiliation. He decided to go surfing at the beach next time. He wanted to anger the landlubber sheep to death. The weather was suitable for going to the beach recently. Flowery Shirt booked the itinerary and even asked the white t-shirt guy to go with him. After all, when he was surfing passionately at sea, he needed someone to help him look after the silly sheep. The white t-shirt guy liked to go out with the sheep. As long as he was free, he would ask him out. When they met, he asked, how was the mountain climbing the last time? Flowery Shirt. They had a good time. This time, it was his turn to shine. On the beach, people and animals lived in harmony. As pets were allowed to enter, there were many golden retrievers and Labradors. They were more gentle and popular. Ao Daisai noticed that Flowery Shirt was preparing for the waves and whispered to Yolashanda, do you want to go surfing? If Yolashanda wanted to play, they would go and grab the surfboard. Yes. Yolashanda's eyes lit up, but they had never tried it before. Ao Daisai. Don't worry, just keep your balance. Flowery Shirt, who was waiting for the waves, did not notice that the two sheep were sneakily approaching. The white t-shirt guy saw it, but chose to drink beer while watching the show. What were these two sheep trying to do? A wave came over. Hearing Ao Daisai's order to jump on, Yolashanda immediately jumped on the board. At the same time, Ao Daisai also jumped on. Flowery Shirt was the only one who did not come up. Surrounded by seawater, he could not believe that he was choking on water while admiring the heroism of the sheep. Wow, Yolashanda, who was standing on the board, was so cool that everyone looked askance. He was doing great. They were the most beautiful animals on the waves. Some people thought that it was fake, right? How could sheep know how to surf? Yolashanda indeed did not know, but his boyfriend knew. When his boyfriend asked him to squat down, he would squat down. When he asked him to move, he would move. This was like a sports rookie having a boyfriend who was good at sports. Awesome. Surfing Baba returned to the shore and immediately enjoyed the endless waves of applause and whistles. Flowery Shirt, who had been left behind, was still struggling in the sea. Who asked him to be so conceited? At this point, Flowery Shirt's plan to seek revenge failed. Later, they went to many places together and left many beautiful memories. Many people asked Flowery Shirt why he had wasted so many years with two sheep. Flowery Shirt said that it was not him who had accompanied the two sheep, but the two sheep who had accompanied him. He was thankful for all the encounters and all the beautiful things that had appeared in his life. Perhaps what was precious was not the time, but the time spent with you. To Alisanda, he felt that parting was never a bad thing. Perhaps parting would make one feel sad and melancholy, but parting also meant that the only things that could separate him from her were life and death. Other than that, our love had withstood all the tests. As the two sheep seemed to like seawater very much, Flowery Shirt stayed at the seaside resort for a long time. This was something that happened many years later. Whenever the weather was good, he would take the two sheep for a walk on the beach. But in fact, most of the time, the two sheep, who had a very good relationship, would go to the shore alone to watch the sunset, feel the sea breeze, and listen to the sound of returning birds. Wasn't it very romantic? Actually, the truth was, Ayo Daisai, let's go. Take the bucket and fish for oysters. Beautiful scenery could not attract Yolashanda. Only delicious food could make him run 3 times a day. Okay, Ayo Daisai picked up the yellow bucket that Yolashanda had bought for him at the market and went to a deserted corner to look for oysters with Yolashanda. 2 white sheep stood among the bumpy reefs. They lowered their heads and searched seriously. From afar, they looked like 2 white clouds that had fallen from the sky. This familiar scene happened at a different time and place. Many things had changed, but they were still the same. That was not accurate. They had changed from strong polar bears to weak sheep. Otherwise, Yolashanda would be able to enjoy instant happiness. Damn it. Now, even if he found a big fat oyster, he could only throw into the bucket and eat it when he went back. Ayo Daisai's taste was the same as before. He still did not have much interest in this thing. He still habitually picked up the seaweed in the water and chewed it, feeding Yolashanda some. After all, this was a good thing that Ayo Daisai had his eyes on. The delicacies found at the seaside all went into Yolashanda's stomach. Other than Yolashanda, Ayo Daisai did not allow anyone to snatch it. Not even one. That was how protective he was of his food. Later on, the Flowery Shirt Man did not allow them to go out privately. However, if Yolashanda wanted to go out, Ayo Daisai would think of ways to bring him out. Yolashanda did not need to think about anything. He just needed to follow Ayo Daisai. He followed the reliable Ayo Daisai wherever he went. If Ayo Daisai said that there was a rock in front, he would go around it obediently. Sometimes Ayo Daisai would say, "The wind is strong today, we should not go out." Yolashanda would listen obediently. Sometimes he would suddenly feel like a child, but sometimes he could not feel it. Until one night, his mind was especially clear. He stuck close to Ayo Daisai and said, "I love you a lot." Ayo Daisai said, "Will I lose you?" Yolashanda said gently, "No. No matter what, he would not lose her. Because Yolashanda never belonged to this world, nor did he belong to the universe. He only belonged to Ayo Daisai. Yolashanda belonged to Ayo Daisai. From that day on, when the big polar bear picked up the poor little North Pole, it was destined. "Okay, it's a deal," Ayo Daisai said with a trembling voice. Snowflakes fell on top of his head. Yolashanda, who was awakened by the sudden drop in temperature, trembled as he opened his eyes. When he saw the familiar glaciers and sea, he could not help but yawn. But why was it so cold in the North Pole? Yolashanda had been in the North Pole for so many years, but he had never experienced the cold. Oh, was it because he had a boyfriend by his side? Wait, where was his boyfriend? At this moment, nothing else mattered. The most important thing was to find out where her boyfriend was. Yolashanda got up and was about to look around and call out to his partner when he heard a series of familiar footsteps. He was not bragging, but he could recognize this walking habit and rhythm even if he turned into ashes. Yolashanda smiled and slowly turned around. He saw the brand new Ayo Daisai. This guy, who followed him like a shadow, once again occupied all his vision. Ugh! Ayo Daisai was ready. Yolashanda flew into his arms. And the author has something to say. Writing their story has shed all my tears. It's over. Thank you everyone for supporting Yolashanda and Ayo Daisai. Sob, goodbye. Yolashanda held hands with Ayo Daisai. Heart to heart, goodbye, friends. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.